Hello, I am Steven Shenman, a developer in Objektgraph, and in this tutorial we show you how to use methods in Objektgraph. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I am going to create another object here and create a next link to a new square. And this one I'm also just going to type make the value 2. Okay, there we go. And so I'm also going to introduce you to the type tab. And so zooming out here, you can see that we have three types: a player type, a pawn type, and a square type. And you can right click here and auto route that link. Didn't get drawn correctly for some reason. So what you want to do in this case is we want to have the pawn move from this square to the next square. So we're going to make a method for the type pawn that does that. So go to the type tab and you right click on the pawn, method, add method. The type of the method name in this case is going to be move. It doesn't need to return anything, so just leave that void. Okay, and then if you double click it in the type tab, then you can see open it in the method tab over here. If you shift click the start node, you can move the start node and everything below it, which is just the start node and the end node, which comes standard with each new method that you create. So to move the node, we have to first know what square the pawn is currently on and what square to move to. So for that, we need a story pattern. So right click on the edge where you want to create the story pattern and do insert new story pattern. So you can expand this dialog here, and you can see this pawn is the pawn that is currently have the method called on it. So you right click drag off the pawn and create a new bind via is onto square some square. And this creates a link to the square that is there. And we also need to know the square that is after this square to link to it. So we do right click drag off the square and select next to square some square and click OK. So this story pattern shows that we will bind the square 1 and square 2 in this story pattern. You can see that this pattern object has a solid border, whereas these two have dotted borders. The dotted border signifies that in this story pattern, these objects will be bound if the story pattern succeeds. In this case, we know that the pawn this story pattern will succeed because there is a pawn that is onto a square, and that square has an X, so it will succeed. So after that, you need to move the pawn. So for that, you need a story update to update the links in the object diagram. So you can insert new story update. And what you can do in the story update is you can say bind object this, and then bind object square 1, and bind object square 2. And you can right click drag to the pawn to square 2 and create link via is on to square 2. So this means that a link will be created between this object and square 2 with the is on link. And you can right click drag off this pawn to the square 1 and do remove link via is on. So this means that if there is a link between these two objects, that they will be removed. Click OK. And that is it for writing this method. It is a very simple method. You can go over here, and drag that, and then right click and create object diagram instance object 1. Because if you go back to the project tab, you can see that the object diagram is object 1, and that's one we've been working with. If we're going back to the method tab, you can see that it has indeed created an instance of the object diagram that we have here, complete with all the objects that we had. So what you can do is call this method on this pawn. So we can call this method invoke move. Move this down. This is a console dialog, and you can use it to step through a method. So to step the method, you just click resume. The yellow node is the one that's going to be processed next. So the story pattern is going to be processed next because it's yellow. Click resume, and you can see that the objects here are now not grayed out. The objects that are grayed out are not bound, and thus you cannot access them in the story diagram. And so the ones that are drawn regularly are the ones that are bound that you can access. and you can access them via their names that are given on the left side of the node. So now this guy is yellow, so this guy will be processed next. So click resume, and you can see that the isOn link on the pawn went from right here to right here, meaning that the pawn moved to the next square. And the end node is highlighted next, so you click resume and the method ends and everything resets back to the way it was. But you can see that the still had an effect because the pawn isOn link is moved to the square. Now notice that this is in the runtime diagram and does not affect the object tab. The object tab just has the objects as the initial positions, and then when you instantiate them into these diagrams on the right side of the method and MVC tabs, you can edit them and they will update themselves. But they will not affect the object tab. And so, if we try to call this again on the method, move, story pattern SP1 failed. Why is that? We'll find out in the next tutorial. See you there.